This is Stalker 2. We're here on Xbox Series X. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So this is the long-awaited sequel to Stalker. Well, there's actually been a number of Stalker, I guess you would call them spin-offs at this point. You know, there was the original Stalker, there's Clear Sky, called Pripyat. And this game, Stalker 2, essentially is a combination of all of those games, all of the maps, all of the locations, all of the places of Stalker, coming together for one massive Stalker experience where you get to venture across a absolutely massive and extensive world. And it's one that is filled to the brim with stuff, things that are trying to kill you, and some generally painful experiences that you will witness as you attempt to survive and make your way across this wasteland. Time has passed, things have changed, and crazy things that are going on. And you are attempting to, well, basically survive in this world and complete a series of missions. It's a game where I think at the core, the story here is actually quite fascinating and fantastic. It's just sort of bloated by never-ending segments of walking, a plethora of bugs, problems, and technical issues, and just gameplay that is tedious to mundane to work through. But at the center, there really is something quite special about this game. And it's just such a shame that there's so many problems around this. It's something that was delayed many, many, many times. And, you know, I guess the end result is still something that is relatively buggy. It's ambitious, it's impressive in terms of scale, but it's something that is still very, very let down by its technical problems and how much of a complete pain this game is to play. So let's talk about the graphical settings here. So we're going to apply the quality mode so you can see that in action. So for the quality mode, it is 1440p reconstructed to 4K using TSR. It's 30 FPS. So TSR basically kind of like FSR, but it's a different temporal scaling solution. It's slightly better. It still creates sort of a shimmering effect on water and stuff and a really bad blur effect in the environment, especially when there's lots of really deep, dense vegetation, which this game has. But, yeah, I guess it is kind of... It's basically the same as FSR. They kind of like branch from one another, but it's basically the same sort of thing. So this is the quality mode, and 30 FPS, but it does drop frames. But, you know, not a bad way to play this game in terms of having something that's a lot more clear visually, and not as all over the place performance-wise. That being said, I would recommend playing the game on performance mode, which is something like just slightly sub 1200p dynamic scaling to a slightly lower threshold, about 300p in there, and then that is reconstructed to 4K at 60 FPS, but the performance will tank, especially early on in the game. When you start venturing out to the open world and exploring, the performance is a lot better, but it still just like tanks all the time below 60 FPS. I've seen it go down to like 20 FPS. Sometimes it'll be like a slideshow in some situations, but kind of the way you should probably play this is with the performance mode. And again, you know, TSR and stuff like that. We've got console, keyboard, and mouse support. And the game, again, being a technical mess, we'll get into all the broken details about this experience as we continue to play here. But I would recommend using these visual settings here. Oh, there's a streamer mode too. Cheers to that. Always appreciated. So the game... Oh, and there's the FOV as well that you can adjust. But the game's darkness and lighting is completely broken. They may fix this in the future. It is a mess. You will not be able to see anything. These are the settings I kind of use for my TV. Because the gamma is just broken. The lighting is just like really broken in this from a default setting. So, oh, there's your HDR mode too there. But like, you will probably maybe need to tune these more for your TV as well. But I did want to provide these as a recommended thing with 65 for brightness, 70 for gamma. Just because visually, the lightning and the darkness, like you can go watch my original stream of this, it just literally does not... it does not work properly. So just you know, keep that in mind. And there's an issue with the dead zone, I guess is the problem the devs are saying, where the game has this like weird motion thing. I was like, oh, maybe they're going for like a Black Ops 6 kind of weird omnidirectional awkward shaking thing, but no, it's literally the movement. Dead zone is just broken, so they're fixing that. And I don't know if they're fixing the lighting, but yeah, the lighting is just completely broken for darkness. And I still am not really super happy with the visual contrast of the game, like lighting wise. But yeah, those are the settings I used from a perspective of people being able to see what I was doing, gameplay wise, streaming wise, and for me to actually kind of be like, okay, this looks fine. So that's kind of the situation here from that perspective. Okay, other technical problems. Sound cutting out during segments, which works if you save and you restart. It's just kind of annoying if you miss a cutscene because people are just, you know, you can't hear them talking or anything like that. And it doesn't fix until you actually save the game, close the game, restart the game. Huge performance drops, segments where things don't work, people twitching all over the place, things where certain parts of the game do not function properly. Incredibly spongy enemies that shoot you through walls, ceilings, floors, and other directional places. It's a supernatural game, so sometimes it's hard to tell if it's a supernatural thing killing me, but a lot of the time it was people just shooting through walls, which you cannot shoot through the walls. I know you're like, oh, maybe it's like Battlefield where you blast through walls. No, you can't do that, but they can. They see you through walls, the stealth is broken, general world environment things don't work. I will say, I only had one crash, and this is a long game. I just, like, blasted through this game's campaign, and it's like 30 hours pretty easily. You do side missions at all, you're probably looking at 40, 50 hours, maybe even 60 hours, because the game just kind of meanders. And then, you know, from that perspective going forward, it's big, it's a chunky game. Like, there's a lot to play here. I think regular people, this will take you years to get through. The big problem with the movement is, like, you will have these segments where your character will be like, okay, I need you to go from here all the way over here, and it'll take 30 minutes of walking. And, you know, like, I saved, I think, 10 minutes by, like, talking to a guy here to fast travel over here. And it takes, like, that's a lot of the game, is you go from here, and then you walk here, and then they want you to walk back over here, and then walk back over here. I think, literally, of the about 30 hours I spent playing the main mission, probably a good 12 hours of that was just walking. A lot of this game is just walking from one place to another place. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, if they had cut the fat, which there is a lot of fat, and I know Stalker is a game about walking around, interacting with things. I was hoping there'd be like an enemy or something I would come across. Just nothing here at all. But like, so much of this game is just walking. And I know the mood of Stalker is you're walking around, you're interacting with things, you're coming across stuff, you're dealing with the horrors of the wasteland, you're meeting individuals, you're chatting with people, you're figuring out what's going on, you're engaging in side content. I get that, that's Stalker. But when you're trying to do actual story content, and the meat of the story is intriguing and interesting, even the ending kind of a little bit fell flat for me and what I got. I think I got the neutral ending, I was told. But, yeah, it's just, there's just so much dead time where there's just nothing happening and you are just walking. And you should save often. Press Y to do quick saves. Save a lot because you'll just get tired of walking and then dying and then like losing progress and having to walk more. It just like, it does weigh down on you, and it just makes the game a lot less enjoyable. And because it's such a long game, you'll forget characters and story beats and stuff, just because you'll be so out of it having walked for so long. And again, I'm not even kidding. I actually timed the one part stream-wise. It was about 30 to 40 minutes to walk across the map to do one quest, and then I had to walk all the way back in a little roundabout way. But yeah, and that was a real pain. That took forever. It was ridiculous. And you'll constantly be needing to keep yourself fed, or drink energy drinks to keep your stamina up, and you constantly have to be using med packs. Now, I would recommend playing this game on the easiest difficulty. I know people get mad when you mention that kind of thing, but I did normal for about 12 hours. It was totally fine. And then there's a certain point in this game where this game just becomes unplayable. It is so viciously hard and so viciously ridiculous that it literally is. Are you a teammate? It is literally just unplayable at that point. You'll have gun jams. You'll have, like, your guns jam in this game ridiculously, and I try my best to keep them fixed and clean. I do my absolute best there. But you'll have issues where, like, guns jam, things don't work, you run out of ammo, you run out of health. And there's a certain point in the game where I think it's about 12 hours in, where it's just, like, unplayable. Like, I think these are bad guys. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, did you just walk through that wall? And the game just, like, it really does become something that you literally just cannot play. Stuff like this happens all the time. It is the coolest but most buggy, broken thing I've ever played. It's literally held together by, like, cheap scotch tape is what it feels like. Very, very cheap scotch tape is what keeps this game working. And, you know, to its point, it does function. Like, you know, again, I had one crash in the entire game, which is really good for performance. But, like, it barely works. Like, it's playable, but it does. It barely, like, functions. Unreal Engine 5 magic, am I right? And this, I guess this is also using older UV5 feature sets, so you don't even get the full feature set. But, yeah, there's a certain point in this game where it just becomes utterly ridiculous. The enemies are incredibly spongy. There were points in this game where I was literally only surviving because I was just packing back health packs, just burning through them, trying to get by enemies. It just, like, it gets utterly ridiculous. And I wish they would have focused more on the sci-fi elements a bit more, too, because those parts were very light, unless there's a lot more in the side missions. But you really don't get to see any of the cool sci-fi stuff until, like, really late in the game. And that in itself was really disappointing, because I really love the cool supernatural elements of this game. That's the whole cool part of the wasteland, and then you get there and it takes so long for that kind of stuff to happen, where it's just kind of annoying. I don't know. This game is really frustrating. Because again, I do feel that there is an incredibly great narrative kind of sitting here. Again, a little underwhelming for everything wrapped up for me. But like, they do some neat stuff. They like kind of like some Black Ops level, cool, mysterious things. There's some really, really interesting stuff in this game. Some like genuinely fascinating and interesting gameplay mechanics. And it's just let down by like bugs and performance, and they took a long time like working on this game, delaying it years, and I get the situations behind the scenes and stuff like that, but when I'm doing these reviews, I still have to sit here and I have to give accurate opinions and thoughts on these things based on what we actually have, and it's really, really broken and buggy. I honestly, like, I know there's some folks out there being like, oh, like 6 months from now this will be a lot better. I think there's probably years of work and more of a modders, because this is supposed to have mod support, even for console, I guess. Like, this is gonna take years of like bug fixes to actually get this running at the state it should, if it ever does. And you know, performance wise, it's where I expected, like the Euro jank kind of thing. You know, performance wise, this is definitely where I expected this game to be. Seriously, I expected this level of like performance quality and stuff like that. I just didn't anticipate that it would be so buggy, where like a lot of the game just genuinely does not function as it should. And don't even get me started, the spongy enemies, the fact that boss battles are like completely broken and barely work, and you have to reload saves. Environmental issues, gameplay issues, walking around endlessly in the environment. Enemies that don't work properly, a stealth system that's just completely busted. Genuinely confusing gameplay that doesn't really give you an idea what's going on. Annoying gameplay structures where, oh, my gun's jammed, oh, my gun's broken, oh, I'm out of ammo, oh, I'm out of health packs, oh, this isn't working, oh, that isn't working, oh, this is terrible, oh, I'm walking slow, oh, I'm radiated, oh, there's an anomaly stabbing me, oh, I'm just falling over and dying, oh, this doesn't function properly, oh, that isn't functioning how it should. It's stuff like this that just It drives you crazy. It's genuinely hard to play through this game, which is a shame because, as I said, I find the story stuff of this really neat. The wasteland, the setting of it, and I don't necessarily mind games where you're walking along, exploring and stuff like that. You know, I quite like Fallout, and I get that they always try to have something going on, so you're not, like, bored, as to say. You know, there's things attacking you, things causing problems for you. But it still ends up with a situation where I feel like I'm just wandering around. It feels like a Fallout 76 situation where I'm just a madman, just walking around endlessly in a wasteland waiting for something to happen. And a lot of the time, nothing really does happen. A lot of the game, you're just bored, just waiting to get to that next point. And it's just ridiculous. It's like cool, you know, the survival stuff, eating food, managing inventory. Oh, and don't even get me started on everything being so over encumbered all the time. It's just like, it's high levels of frustration and annoyance to the point that it's not even fun. And it's like, it's fun if you were like, you know, playing it with something like a level of challenge for the difficulty. But like, even going to easy, it's the 2020s. Like, I get Stalker is a game of its time, but this is Stalker 2. This is Stalker for a modern era. You have to get with the times a little bit. People want to enjoy and experience your game. And the level of frustrations I have in here, your regular gamer is not going to be able to properly play or finish this game. The aggravation I felt trying to actually, like, trudge through this, I think your typical regular person that has to work like a job and actually live a regular life will just uninstall this game. And the install size is massive, and it takes forever to load checkpoints. It's like they're reloading the entire world every time you die. It's like 360 era like loading for segments. It drives you crazy. Like, absolutely just mad. And I really genuinely don't understand. Oh, I got ribs. Why it takes so long and why everything in this game is so tedious. That's the thing, is the tedious angle of having to do stuff. And an inventory system that makes DayZ look like it's the sleekest of Apex Legends Battle Royale management. Oh my. And I get that it's an old school Stalker thing. But as I said, you need to have a balance of traditional gameplay with stuff that has changed. It is the 2020s. There are more expectations for games. There are more desires for games to run better, look better. And yeah, you know what? This environment is impressive. There's tons of, like, plants. The trees are dense. I love looking up at the night sky. I like enjoying the open forests. The swamps are cool. It was great seeing, like, recreated areas from the previous Stalker games. But, like, a lot of it just sucks. Like, it just sucks. And you get to parts of it, like the ending portion where you're doing all the crazy combat and stuff like that. That was fantastic. That was cool. So that's what I'm saying. Like, story-wise, there's some genuinely neat stuff in here. Gameplay-wise, it leaves a lot to be desired, and it feels very aged. And there's parts of it where you can be like, oh, that's just because it's Stalker. And I get that. But there's parts too where you're like, a modern game I expect a lot more from, especially a game that we've been like sort of waiting for so long, that has had so many development delays. And I get the whole situation's kind of happening and stuff like that. It's impressive this game even, you know, came out like it did. Seriously, bravo to the dev team there. But there is an element of incredible frustration and annoyance in trying to play this game and in trying to enjoy this game and to showcase it to you. Because yeah, what you've been seeing in this video, that's a regular representation of this game. As I said, a lot of it just literally does not function properly. And you'll spend so much of your time just wandering aimlessly towards the next position. This is what the game is largely like, and you get like a little tiny segment of probably 20 minutes of really interesting story, and then you're spending like half an hour walking from place to place to place to place to the next place. And you're ultimately kind of left wondering why you're doing that, like what the point of it is. So many people are literally just going to stop playing this game out of sheer frustration. And I don't at all blame them. It's very, very fair to sit here and play this and just be tired of it. And no, there's not fast traveling. Yes, you can pay for a guide. They will take you to certain places if you're lucky and you meet the right guide. Other guides will not. It will cost you money. It will be hard for you to find the money to pay for things. It'll be hard for you to find the items to pay for things. Sometimes the directions in the game, they don't make sense or they don't work properly. Sometimes the checkpoint things don't work properly. A lot of this game is just buggy. It's problematic and exhausting for your regular player. Still, oh, and this yellow tape stuff is terrible. Apparently you can turn it off, but then it'd be even harder to actually figure out what you're doing in some of those, like, literal parts where you're like, huh? But there is something, I think, buried under the surface here that's genuinely great. Like, if you were to cut all the fat, as I had said prior, from my gameplay experience of playing this game, and you focus more on the story bit of it, I think there's actually something really interesting and worth playing here. I just know that your average player is going to shut this off and give up on it, and uninstall it and save the space. Because it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And I'm not sugarcoating it or anything. And, you know, I don't know if that sounds harsh or whatever, but I'm supposed to give you an accurate representation of my experience with it. And it was like, I'm very thankful that I'm at the point of reviewing this so that I can wrap it up and then uninstall this game and save some space on my hard drive. Alright, I gotta fix my jam gun again. These enemies are actually kind of cool, all things considered, but yeah, it's stuff like this that you deal with in the wasteland all the time where you're walking around. There's giant, like, invis stuff, and your gun's jamming and things are breaking. I'd have one situation where you're fighting, and it would be like, one shot, gun jam. One shot, gun jam. One shot, gun jam. And it just absolutely drives you crazy. And I'm bleeding out right now, so I'm supposed to use a bandage in order to stop that. And then my gun's jammed. And that's what it's at, like, it's just like 30 plus hours of doing this kind of thing with guns jamming, things breaking, things not working properly. And you just endlessly walking across the wasteland having to deal with this stuff constantly. Not to mention the radiation is probably the least of your problems in this game. And it gets exhausting. There really is. There's going to be a point for most people, even playing this on, like, the easiest difficulty, where easy difficulty, it's more like they give you a bunch of, like, resources, it seems like. I think things are slightly easier to kill, but yeah, and it's just going to eventually break you down, and you're just going to want to stop playing. And I think there's going to be a cutting point where a lot of the game, it's just like people literally do not want to deal with what this game has to offer, and you'll just be done with it. For those that do kind of tough it out, you know, there is a very interesting, rewarding story. Some of the thoughts and the concepts that they play with are very, very cool here. I liked the sense of mystery. I like the sense of terror and horror and unsettling bits and the psychological things and the stuff that happens in the wasteland. There's some really interesting stuff in this game. I just wish it wasn't so grueling, difficult, and annoying to sit there and play through. Otherwise, it would be a lot more enjoyable. It would be cool if there was a setting where it's like the enjoy the world and atmosphere setting. Oh, not the rats. Because, yeah, it really does feel like a collection of where every step of the way something is trying to kill you. And a lot of the game is just walking. And, you know, I'd love to go off on a side quest and be lost in the world and excited by it, but yeah, it just doesn't really quite capture you that way. You're so burned out by all the things you have to deal with and do and see and fight through that eventually you just get to a point where even if there is something specifically interesting, you're just kind of like, ugh, I'm too tired to do it. And that's a shame. Because, like, you know, the voice work too, you can even play it in, like, the proper, like, vocalization and everything like that, which is fantastic if you want to go that way. And it's just like, it's a shame because there is a lot of love and care here, and this is genuinely a massive, impressive technical feat and world and design. Like, seriously, bravo to the team for putting this together. Like, this game is massively impressive. It's just technically it's a bit of a mess, and gameplay-wise, it's not necessarily fun, and I think it'll be a little grueling for a lot of players to enjoy.